So a quick story time. This is going to be my 9th year beginning while living abroad. However, I will definitely adjust that for the 2 years I spent while studying my master's, and 1.5 years actually for COVID, because 2020 all the way into the half of 2021, that does not count. That does not count. Every single time someone asks me, okay, how long have you been in Portugal? I definitely have to adjust for COVID because that was wrong. Anyway, whichever the case, why I'm telling you this story is because 9 years later, I would say 8 years going now into the 9th year later, what have I learned? What would I have done differently? And so that, this is not advice, it's just to give you my own experience. Obviously, your experience might be different from mine, so this is not advice, it's just giving you an overview of possibly what to expect if you're thinking of moving abroad, especially in the EU, or moving into Portugal as usual. I talk about moving to Portugal and so on and so forth. It's not easy. It's not easy. Anybody will tell you it's not easy, right? So I will adjust my years, I would say 4.5 solid years, whereby I've been able to now integrate into the system, work in the system, do my bureaucratic processes, and so on and so forth. And I will tell you what possibly I would have done differently. First of all, I moved because of study. So I moved through a study visa. Would I have done that differently? No. Because I think, in my opinion, honestly, you might differ with this, but I think, in my opinion, moving with a study visa is actually easier as opposed to moving for work, or maybe you're just coming to look for work. I think it's much easier because, look, you're moving as a student and you're able to learn the system as a student, and you have some sort of, cushion where, you're a student, you have discounts, student discounts, you get to live in places where, it's student friendly in terms of the cost. You get to, understand the system, the bureaucratic system, the culture of that country, way before you dive into the workforce and things become serious and things become, adulting. Because adulting sometimes, can adult you down the drain sometimes, especially because you're living abroad. And I will speak about this because I am Kenyan, right? And when I used to live in Nairobi, things were easy. Like, you could easily find a guy, a guy or a girl who could cook for you, come and clean for you, do everything for you, send them somewhere, A, B, C, D, E. When you are abroad, everything is up to you. Unfortunately, everything is up to you. Why? Everything doesn't have to be up to you, but it's very expensive to actually find someone to do it on your behalf. So find someone to clean, find someone to even cook for you. It will cost you quite a lot. And when you do the math, the math cannot math, or it doesn't math sometimes, because sometimes you might say, okay, sure, I will look for somebody to maybe do cleaning, but it's only once in a while, honestly speaking. So the hyper independence is real. So everything is actually up to you when you are working, and obviously even when you're studying. But I think things are easier when you're studying because you have some sort of different way, easier sort of set of things and challenges, because all you need to do is go study, and if you're on a scholarship, you have a stipend. And if you are also living maybe with colleagues from school and so on and so forth, you get to share quite a lot, and you have a lot more of downtime as opposed to when you're working. So I would never have done things differently. Moving abroad as a student was definitely a plus for me, because that way I got to open up my mind into the reality of Europe, the reality of Portugal, the reality of Netherlands, the reality of Spain, and all these places. I've been privileged to quite go to most of Europe. I have just a few countries which are not mainstream that I haven't been to, and so I have been privileged to go into these countries, or rather I was privileged to actually visit these countries just because I was on a student visa and I had some downtime here and there. And going around Europe is actually very easy. I could easily use a bus or a train or go on Ryanair. The days Ryanair was not, the Ryanair of today. It was actually quite much nicer. Nowadays they have zero chills with the baggage and all these kind of things. That's a story for another day. But this was something that I really, really appreciated, and I really appreciated Erasmus for that, because again, if it was not for Erasmus, I don't think I would have done that. So that's one thing for sure. Another thing that I definitely might have done differently is to start looking for PhDs and jobs as soon as possible, because the thing is with Erasmus scholarship is that it goes quite fast. It goes very, very, very fast within a 2-year period, and then boom, you're done with the scholarship. There's no more stipend, and things can really get crazy at the very last minute. So I think I would possibly have even taken like 1 year to find a job and not hurriedly look for a job within the last 6 months of my studies, because that is what happened. I was just about to finish my Erasmus, and I was like, you know what, reality checks in. And I remember that I had already emptied down my apartment in Nairobi, and I had nothing to go back to. I had already resigned my job in Nairobi, and I had nothing to actually go back to. So I was like, you know what, I have to look for a job here. I have to make things work here. And at the time, because I finished my master's in the University of Porto, I decided to stay here because it was easier that way for paperwork to change from a student visa to a work visa, which is another whole process in itself. So I think I would have begun looking for these jobs earlier enough. Perhaps I would have had a different trajectory where I would not rush at the very last minute, which is something that I wish that even somebody who is listening to this, if you're finishing your studies or you've come to do your master's or PhD, start earlier, start as early as possible. Another thing that I would have actually done differently would have to be learning the Portuguese language early, because in the EU, if you're not going to the UK, obviously, these countries have different official languages, and they are not easy. These languages are not as easy. So I remember beginning my Portuguese language like on the app on Duolingo, but didn't take it so seriously. But I think what I would have done differently is to take the language more seriously, because I have had to learn it on a crash basis, do a crash course. And I have a link down below for one of my teachers who's helped me a whole lot to learn Portuguese. And till today, some of the words, sometimes somebody will say something, especially if they come from the north and speak very fast, or I will speak and my brain is actually thinking in English and Swahili, and then I'm like, okay, what is it that I need to say in Portuguese? It's not easy. It's not easy at all. So I think I would have taken it quite seriously before, and maybe practiced more, found more Portuguese friends early enough to practice with them. It's a long process. It's a whole thing by itself. But I think this is one of the things that I would have done. I would also have given myself the grace to actually take time to understand different processes and things, and even the school system, the bureaucratic system, the cultural system. It's not an easy thing to actually integrate into the Portuguese culture. Some of the things that I used to do quite fast in Nairobi, here it's actually much slower. The way you go to an office in Kenya, a government office, or maybe somebody who knows somebody else who will fast track your process. This is not the same as Portugal. So these are some of the things that I wish I would have given myself the grace and learned more about the culture before I could actually move here, and also set my expectations in terms of the work culture, in terms of the language, in terms of the type of friends that I will get, because eventually I have garnered quite the number of friends, honestly, because I have lived in Porto for 2 years, I've lived in the Algarve for 2 years, and I'm now living in Lisbon. So I have a set of friends from different places in Porto, Portuguese friends, as well as people who are international, who've moved in, Frenchies and Italians. In the Algarve, I also have a different set of friends, and also in Lisbon, I have a different set of friends. So I think I would have taken my time to understand that, I will lose friends. I will gain others who are international, and they will keep on coming in and going, because some people choose to keep staying here, others choose to actually leave, right? So the reality check of the type of friends and the type of circle that you have within a certain country, this is one of the things that I think I would have, be more aware of what is going to happen, because it's kind of a roller coaster of emotions. You don't realize it, but later you're like, You know what? I have friends in various parts of the world. Some are not here. We don't share common vibe anymore, but it's fine. It comes and goes, comes and goes, comes and goes, comes and goes. Another thing that I think I would have done differently is to also make sure that I'm very, very aware of the fact that as much as I want to build some sort of life in Kenya, like invest in Kenya and have some sort of things going on in Kenya, it's also important to actually invest in the country that you're in. Investing in Portugal, for instance. So if, for example, you're moving in the EU, so what do I mean by this? It's, for instance, if you have a way where you can potentially maybe buy an apartment, buy a house, or invest in stocks in the country. The tax is always very high sometimes for stocks within the EU, but investing even that small amount of euros every other month would go a very long way. And also, if you're able to actually get a house in Portugal or even wherever else you're going in the EU, would be very, very, very important, because in the end, this is an investment that you could potentially even sell later or maybe rent out that house. So maybe this is one of the things that I really would have thought early. I never actually thought of buying a house until very lately, which I have not yet achieved in Portugal, but this is something that I would think that, you know, would have helped me quite a lot, because looking for houses and rental houses and all these kind of things is quite the roller coaster, honestly speaking. And also investing back home, you know, the way we come abroad and we're like, you know what, I'm going to earn my money and all of it to Kenya. But it's important to have that sort of balance. So if you want to invest in Kenya, sure, also have some sort of investment in the EU as well. This will go a long way. Or if you don't want to invest in the EU, then make sure that you potentially maybe have like stocks here and there, or you have some sort of deposit in your bank where you can get some interest. This is very crucial, because for a rainy day. And the thing is also, the banks within the EU, sometimes it's so easy to get a loan. So it's very important to make sure that if you really don't need that loan, please don't take it, because that money is sweet sometimes, but then let me tell you, yeah, if you want maybe like a mortgage, or you want to do something else later, this becomes a problem. You know, the way here it's, for instance, you will get small things on credit, like maybe you get a phone on credit, or get anything, name it, you could potentially get it on credit, right? But then there's interest on sometimes on these types of things. So eventually you find that your salary, the salary you're earning at the end of the month, amounts up. And you know, you're getting, you know, certain cuts from maybe a loan, a personal loan that you took, or maybe a credit thing that you bought, or whatever it is. So make sure that you manage your budgets very well, and also ensuring that, you know, you have some sort of balance in your country where you're living in, abroad, and also some sort of balance back in Kenya, whereby, you know, you can be able to have some sort of way. If you are visiting Kenya, sometimes it's usually very difficult to go stay with relatives or go stay in hotels. It's expensive. So having your own place maybe in Kenya, where maybe you rent it out when you're not there, or something of the sort, that is something that I have learned along the way. Another thing that I also have learned is to network as much as possible. Let me tell you, abroad life, network, and it never stops. It never stops. You never stop saying that, you know what, this is enough of networking. Network, re-network, network again every other single time, because you're as good as your networks. Usually, if somebody trusts you, in the EU, for instance, in Portugal, if somebody trusts you very well, then they will recommend you for something. Or maybe it's a house you're looking for, they might recommend you for this house. Or maybe it's whatever it is that you're looking for, they will definitely recommend you for this. So network as much as possible. It doesn't stop at the first instance, or the first year, or the first few months. It keeps on going and going and going. And also very important to know your friends, because not everybody, especially people from your own home country, not everybody is in your corner. So make sure that you know you have a very small circle, because this is something that I have learned over the years, that it's important to have a small circle, a circle that you can actually grow with, not somebody who is just coming to tear you down. And also ensuring that, you know, you're not oversharing sometimes, because people are not always happy for you. So know your circle, know whom to share what with, and know whom to even hang out with sometimes, because not everybody is on your corner, right? So another thing that I also have learned very well is to manage expectations from people back home, because as soon as you say that you're abroad, everybody is like, you know what, let's add her to the wedding committee, let's add her to whatever the committee, and these people expect that you have to contribute, and these are people who've not even spoken to you in years and years and years, and you're like, okay, what do you want me to do here? Because you have sent me into a committee and it doesn't make sense, right? So this is very important for you to note that, you know, people will have expectations. You have to know how to say no and make sure that you stand your ground, because people will always have this kind of thought process. Just because you're abroad, you are working ATM. Even when you go back to Kenya, everyone expects you to get their bill, take gifts to them. Those people will never even give you a gift. Have you ever even received a gift from somebody or your friend from Kenya when you arrive and they're like, oh, here's a gift for you? But they expect gifts from abroad, right? So it's important for you to manage expectations and know how to say no. Say no and stand your ground, and ensure that, you know, you're living your life as much as you can. You are ensuring that you're taking care of your mental health, because this is also something that I have learned over the years. Take care of your mental health. Your mental health determines how you are. Your mental health, your health generally, going for regular checkups, things to do with vitamin D deficiencies, things to do with iron deficiencies. These are things that you can actually mitigate. And when you're abroad, sometimes it's so easy to forget yourself, because you're on a run, rushing for the next thing, and you forget yourself. You forget that this is the body that you actually need for you to be able to show up at work, for you to be able to show up for your family, for your friends, etc. So, important for you to do those checkups, do those general checkups, you know, go for that session with your therapist. Do whatever it is, make sure that you are at your best, because you need yourself to show up for yourself, because nobody is coming to actually save you. It's very important for you that you remember that no one is coming to save you. This is your journey. And the fact that you're abroad does not mean that your body knows that you're abroad and it's going to, you know, keep on acting the way it ought to be. Things will happen along the way. So it's very important for you to take care of this and ensure that you are aware of what is actually happening in your life. Now, this video is gonna be too long. However, 8 years on, I think I don't have much of regrets, because the way I live my life is that I am experiencing life. I do not want to have a way where, you know, every single time something happens or something throws me off, I'm regretting the process. I have learned to allow myself to experience pretty much everything, zero regrets, learning, because this life is a journey. It's a learning curve. It's not easy. It's not the same as being in Kenya. It's not the same as being within familiar grounds. And 8 years on, the things that I would have done differently would definitely be the language, definitely networking more and earlier, finding that job earlier instead of wasting so much time wondering, you know, what to do next and answering that question of what next after studying. Things to do with ensuring that I am also investing the money that I am earning, that I am investing it wisely for the future. I mean, right now I am actually actively doing that, which is very, very crucial for me. And I think over time, things get better. When you're abroad, things take time. Things take time to actually, you know, work out for you. It's not the same as where you're in Kenya, where, you know, you will find a thing here, a thing there, and another thing there. You have several side things to do at the same time. It's also very possible to do side things when you're abroad, but it takes so much more work. I have done some side things. Like there's a time I used to sell shoes even. I've done side things here abroad, obviously. I've done some, you know, side companies. I have this company where, you know, I do also consulting as well on the side. And it's a lot. It's a lot by itself. However, it's also important to also look back and see what you've accomplished over the years and how you're faring on every year, and you're not just wallowing into a hamster wheel where you're running without giving yourself grace or patting yourself on the back, because you're doing just great. So 8 years later, would I tell someone to move into Portugal? Yes, with a lot of research. Lots of research. Be very clear of exactly what you want to come and achieve. Do you want to just come study and go back? Do you want to come and start a business and keep at it? Do you want to come in and start working? What type of job do you want? What type of skills do you want to leverage to the highest bidder? Because that is exactly how it is. What exactly do you want to come and do in Portugal that you will look back 5 years later or 10 years later or 15 or 20 years later, and you'll be like, this process was definitely worth it. Very important for you to understand the bureaucracies as well, the paperwork that is needed for each and every process that you would potentially be looking into. So this is something that I talk about again on this channel. So would I tell someone to come to Portugal? 100%. But do your research, move into any other country that you feel that is going to work out for you best, and don't compare yourself. This is your journey. It is very unique to you, and what somebody else experiences does not mean that that is exactly how you're going to experience things. Everyone is going to have a different journey, and so it's very important for you to realize that each and everybody's journey is going to be different. Each and everybody is going to look at you differently. It's going to perceive you differently. You're going to perceive things differently as well. So it's your journey. Own it. And I hope and I wish for the very best of success as you move abroad, wherever it is. Obviously, feel free to comment and leave your comments down below. And I'm always happy to read your comments, or even on the DMs and so on and so forth. So until next time, keep tuned. Bye.